In the vast, silent theater of the desert, the loudest warnings are often just whispers. And in February of 1941, we, who believed ourselves the masters of this sandy stage, had grown deaf to them. We had pushed back the Italians, tasted victory in the shimmering heat, and a dangerous comfort had settled over us like a shroud. We thought we knew the rhythm of this war, the predictable cadence of attack and counterattack. But the desert, in its infinite wisdom, was about to teach us a new, terrifying song. My name is Arthur Finch, and I was a young lieutenant then, my skin baked the color of the earth and my eyes accustomed to the endless horizon. Our world was a simple one of sun, sand, and the satisfying rumble of our Matilda tanks. The whispers began as faint transmissions, rumors from the ports. Talk of strange ships docking in Tripoli under the cloak of night. German ships. We scoffed at first. The real fight, the brass told us, was brewing elsewhere. Resources, men, and attention were being diverted to the mountains of Greece. This North African campaign felt like a sideshow, a settled affair. That was our first mistake. The desert does not tolerate arrogance. The whispers grew louder, carried on the wind itself. They took the form of an engine's drone, a sound sharper and more menacing than the Italian planes we were used to swatting from the sky. One searing afternoon, while my reconnaissance unit was charting a new supply route, the sky was torn open. They weren't the lumbering Savio Marchettis, they were Messerschmitts, diving like hawks with a predatory scream. They strafed our column with terrifying precision, their cannons chewing up the sand around our trucks. We scrambled for cover, our bravado melting away under the assault. It was a message written in fire and steel across the canvas of the desert. A new player had entered the game. The Luftwaffe had arrived, and they began to pound our positions, our airfields, even the Italian ports we had captured, with relentless, methodical fury. The pressure was immense, a constant, grinding weight from above that frayed our nerves and shattered our complacency. Yet even then, we found reasons for optimism. News crackled over the wireless that one of our submarines, the HMS Valiant, had found its mark in the deep blue of the Mediterranean. Like a silent hunter, it had stalked a convoy, sinking an Italian merchantman. The Argenta and its escort, the light cruiser Centurion. We cheered at the news. It was proof that we still held the power, that we could strike back. But in our celebration, we missed the deeper truth. The very existence of that convoy, filled with German soldiers and equipment, was a confirmation of the scale of the threat we were facing. While we were sinking to ships, how many more were getting through? We were plugging a leak in a dam that was about to burst. The name that began to haunt the radio waves and the intelligence briefings was that of General Klaus Adler. We knew nothing of him, but his presence was felt everywhere. He was a phantom, his intentions shrouded in dust and distance. Our patrols would report sightings of vast armored columns on the horizon. Far more than our intelligence estimated the Germans could have possibly landed. The dust clouds they kicked up were enormous, suggesting a force of overwhelming size. Fear, a cold and unfamiliar companion, began to creep into our hearts. We were facing an army of ghosts. It was only later we learned the truth. Adler was a master of illusion. Many of those tanks were nothing more than wooden shells mounted on Volkswagen cars, designed to create dust and deception. He was playing on our minds, exaggerating his strength, making us hesitate, making us second-guess every move. He was waging a war of perception before the first shot was even fired between us on the ground. His newly formed Afrika Korps was not just an army, It was a psychological weapon. The complacency in high command, distracted by Greece, remained. My own superiors dismissed our reports of increasing German activity as jitters. "Finch," my major told me, his voice dismissive over the crackling field telephone, "it's a feint, a bit of German bluster. Carry on with your reconnaissance near Agheila. Find us a path." And so we went. 3 armored cars, a dozen men filled with a misplaced confidence handed down from on high. We were the eyes and ears of the army, venturing into the unknown. The sun was a hammer, the silence of the desert absolute. The heat warped the air, creating mirages that danced and shimmered like water. It was in that deceptive stillness that the trap was sprung. We were moving through a shallow wadi, the sand soft under our tires, when the world exploded. It wasn't a grand, chaotic battle. It was a sudden, brutal, and surgically precise ambush. The first shell hit our lead car, turning it into a fireball. There was no warning, no sound of an approaching tank. The shot came from nowhere. Then another shell hit our rear vehicle, immobilizing it. We were caught. From concealed positions on the ridge of the wadi, German anti-tank guns opened up. Their fire was devastatingly accurate. These were not the ghosts we had been chasing. They were seasoned soldiers, hidden, patient, and deadly. We had blundered into the jaws of the wolf. I remember tumbling out of my car, the air thick with the smell of cordite and burning fuel, my ears ringing. I saw men I had shared tea with that morning cut down in an instant. The battle, if you could call it that, was over in minutes. It was a lesson delivered with brutal efficiency. I was one of the few who made it back, stumbling through the desert under the cold light of the stars, the ghosts of my fallen comrades walking beside me. When I finally reached our lines, exhausted and broken, I brought with me not just a report of our losses, but a vital, terrible truth. The war in Africa had changed forever. Our comfortable assumptions had been incinerated in that wadi. This was not the enemy we knew. This was a professional, cunning, and ruthless force, led by a man who understood that the desert rewards not just strength, but deception and audacity. That ambush near Agheila was a defeat. It was a painful, humiliating sting, but it was not the end. It was the beginning. It was the violent, shocking awakening we so desperately needed. In that crucible of fire and loss, our arrogance was burned away, leaving behind a core of hardened resolve. We had been taught a lesson in humility, not by the sand or the sun, but by a superior foe. And from that humility, true strength is born. We learned that to win, we first had to respect our enemy, to understand their methods, to anticipate their cunning. We had to become as patient, as resilient, and as unforgiving as the desert itself. The whispers we had ignored had become a roar of fire and steel. And from that day forward, we finally, truly, learned to listen. That lesson, paid for in blood and wreckage in a forgotten wadi, would be the foundation upon which all our future victories would be built.